Hey guys, it's Sad Crowman, and I'm here to explain a thing today. So when I launched this channel, I thought I was going to go straight into producing the audiobook. I knew it would take me some time, but that was my priority. However, I did some soul searching, and I realized that's not what's best for me or the book. It's not so much because this channel isn't monetized yet. I mean, the YouTube partner program is not, no one can rely on that anyway. Unless you have like millions of subscribers, you cannot rely on the YouTube partner program for all your bills and stuff. And let's just be honest, I'd probably get ad restricted a lot anyway because this book has a lot of dark themes in it. So you see, mostly it's because I'm not satisfied with the cut I released. I'm saying cut like it's a movie. But yeah, I can't very well release the audiobook until I'm happy with the book I've released. Most of you know the story by now. The original cut, I rushed it because I didn't want to disappoint people by pushing the release date back, and that was a mistake. I was so anxious I couldn't tell the difference between that inner voice saying, hey, there's still some stuff you need to work on, this book isn't ready, and the inner voice saying, you're a complete piece of garbage and everything you do sucks. So as a result, I released rushed work. Of course, a lot of you love and appreciate Cry for the Devil for what it is currently, and I do appreciate that, and that's why the book is still up, even though it kind of embarrasses me in its current state. But I did want to talk a little bit about what changes I'm making to make the re-release everything the original was supposed to be from the beginning. So first one's obvious. I'm hoping I'll be able to afford a professional editor. If the original had an editor, it would have saved me a lot of headache because editors, they'll catch small continuity errors that I don't notice because it's a lot to juggle such a big book, it's a really big book. And also all the grammatical errors, editors catch those. Ideally they catch all of them, but sometimes things slip through even when an editor is working on it. So when it's your own work, you become kind of blind to those mistakes you make. So yeah, you can expect some minor tweaks throughout the book, such as like wording, sentence structure, anything that could be clarified, I will clarify. Any lines I think are cringy or whatever will be reworded, and anything that I think is either inaccurate or just hard to understand at face value, I might tweak as well. Which is a big deal because, I do have a character that talks like he's hooked up to a lie detector, so. Not the easiest thing to write. And secondly, I may take more time to set the scene. I skipped this in the original because I felt like it wasn't important. I was of this mindset like, everyone knows what Philadelphia is. It's a city. Why would I waste time talking about the murky weather or the busy streets when I could just cut straight to the meat of the story? And, I strongly feel that that was a mistake. Just like the way I cut these bangs on this wig. The book it's mostly thoughts and dialogue currently. And, I'd like to do more to really bring Philadelphia to life for the people who haven't been there, And even for the people who have, like, setting the scene is not a bad thing. It's not an unworthy thing. I guess I just have a hard time paying attention to it sometimes when I'm reading, but I should try to pay more attention to it when I'm reading, too. Third, and this is a huge one, I want Ferretti and Elijah's character arcs to be contained and resolved within a singular book. And that will be the Cry for the Devil re-release. After reading like 540 pages, what was it? I mean, it was kind of large print, but there were a lot of pages. The reader, after reading all that, deserves a resolution, but instead what the reader gets is a cliffhanger. And I did that because I didn't feel like enough was resolved about Eretti and Elijah and their character arcs. It just needed more time to be explored. And judging by the page count, there's not really much of an excuse for that. The solution was not to make a bunch of prequels where their motives in book one will be finally implicitly explained in prequels. No, prequels are a bitch to write, more on that later. And, things would just flow more smoothly if I inserted some more point of view chapters in Eretti and Elijah's perspectives and some flashbacks from their perspectives as well. And, then I can include the ending and it'll work. I may have to move some furniture around, so to speak, since the original was written to be told by William alone, but nothing significant will be changed about the story. It'll probably be mostly dialogue tweaks, honestly. Of course, I did Elijah especially dirty. Even after spending all that time with him, William never uncovers all of Elijah's secrets or intentions. His motives are kind of explained in a rush at the end, both under duress and with an ulterior motive. Everything he says in the last chapter is totally unreliable. Maybe not completely unreliable, but mostly it's pretty unreliable because he's still trying to pull the strings, but he's not even sure what he wants at that point. He keeps flip-flopping between two different motives. And for most readers, it's kind of hard to tell what he's thinking or what he wants. Unless you're the same kind of crazy, in which case he probably makes perfect sense. But I will say this, at least with Elijah, since William spent so much time with him, the end of his character arc makes perfect sense, even if you don't have the extra context that his motives and the right flashbacks will provide. But Eretti is where the problems really start to stack up, because she's not as open with William. She's more guarded around him. She very rarely gets vulnerable with William, and it's just like she kind of puts up this facade of strength and control around him because she doesn't trust him fully, and because he could, he has the tools to ruin her life. He could go to the police at any moment and ruin her life, and she knows that. So therefore, by the end of the book, since Eretti's not as open with William, he doesn't know as much about her, and thus the reader doesn't know as much about her. And for her ending feels like it kind of comes out of nowhere, because the book suffers from not having Eretti's voice. And yeah, I was originally going to write full prequels, going into depth about how Simone raised her getting #canceled online, her relationship with an abusive ex-boyfriend, who I haven't come up with a name for yet. I'm working on it. The full extent of the drama surrounding that stuffed rabbit Hoppy, and why she had such a strong visceral reaction to Hoppy and all that stuff, etc., etc. But not only would that have put off the end of the series by like a decade or so, which is a long time for me to be broke considering how bad book 1 flopped, but that brings us to my next point, and that's the biggest point of all. Reason number 4. Writing prequels is a fucking bitch. The second book was going to go back to the 90s, it still is, and focus mainly on Eretti's mother, Simone. I revealed very little specifics about Simone in book 1 because I knew I was going to write this prequel and I didn't want to lock myself into too much. But somehow, every single little thing I said about Simone in book 1 still got in the way in book 2. And you wouldn't think it'd be too much of a big deal, seeing as how I started book 1 in 2014 and book 2 in 2016, long before I published book 1 in 2019. However, remember, I released it in a rush before it was finished. So yeah, every single little thing I wrote about Simone ended up getting in the way of what I was writing in the prequel. That's the type of continuity error I just can't ignore. So little constraints that I didn't pay too much attention to when I released book 1, or at least didn't think were too big of a deal when I released book 1, started to cause a lot of trouble for me. Because it was based on an older incarnation of Simone that was rushed. And after I made very subtle but still conflicting changes to her character. So the result was the way she interacts with her killer in book 1, in her death scene, just seemed a bit out of character, mostly from the dialogue. And it just kind of gave her a different dynamic with her killer than what I've been going for like years now. So what am I gonna do? Throw away all of book 2 for a flop book 1? No. So, I wasn't satisfied with that chapter when I released the original edition, and I thought I could work around it at first, and I tried to work around it at first, but I couldn't. It just was not working. And if I can't even work around what little subtle details I provided for Simone in book 1, how the hell am I supposed to write a prequel for Eretti and Elijah? And God forbid writing from Elijah's prequel perspective for 3 fucking books. I'm not capable, guys. I'm just not capable. Conveniently concise flashbacks it is. So what am I changing, though, about Simone's death scene? Because I know you know where I'm going with this. I'm changing her death scene. So what am I changing? Basically, all of the little details and most of the dialogue. Now, the same general things are going to happen. Simone will think she has full control over the situation. She will underestimate her killer, she will say too much, and her murder will go unsolved due to circumstances that she herself created. It'll just be more true to the character I created for book 2. So yeah, I'm not making any changes to Simone that you guys aren't gonna like. You know, she still has her tragic essay backstory, she still seeks revenge, she's still a serial killer. It's just, she's a little less prissy, and yet a little bit more camp. I don't know how to explain it, but I really think you'll like her. Especially if you like evil and nefarious women, you will love Simone. So I promise, I'm not doing any damage here. And of course I do have book 2 fully mapped out and partially written. So, you know, it's no longer a problem. I don't think it's going to be a problem anymore. But there's only going to be the one prequel, and that will be called Simone's Revenge. And it'll be mostly Simone's perspective, though there will be some scenes in Elijah's perspective. As for all of the prequel scenes for Eretti, those are going to be moved to book 1. And as for Elijah, I'm not sure exactly, because since he is a secondary narrator, to Simone's Revenge, there will be some chapters that I think may be better left in book 2, but I'll at least make sure the Cry for the Devil re-release has enough context to adequately explain Elijah being, you know, Elijah, and why his decisions are so Elijah. But what does that mean for the series as a whole? Well, it's not just going to be the 2 books now. It's not just going to be Cry for the Devil re-release, title pending, and Simone's Revenge. You know, Eretti and Elijah, their character arcs will resolve in the re-release. Simone's character arc, it will resolve, obviously, in Simone's Revenge. But, you know, that still leaves William. Is that all there is to William, is getting kidnapped by Eretti? And Elijah, no. Well, okay, it was mostly Eretti. Elijah just went along with it, but you get what I mean. Is that all that there is to William? No. Because by the end of book 1, the re-release, he's still going to have dreams that he has yet to complete. He still hasn't had a career that's taken off. You know, he still hasn't made any deep, meaningful friendship connections. His relationship with Whitney is kind of in its early stages, a little bit precarious. And I still feel like there's plenty of room to write a direct sequel that focuses entirely on William. Well, maybe not entirely. I can also throw in some of the other characters as well. I've also considered writing some alternate endings, maybe like as an anthology. That could be fun. Maybe a book of short stories for some of the, you know, prequel things that I wanted to include that I won't have room for anymore. Maybe some parallel universes based on the butterfly effect. I mean, I could write a whole novel set in a parallel universe. I love parallel universes, the butterfly effect, stuff like that. I find that so fun, and I'm a little surprised more authors don't do it. But yeah, I never considered my story to be linear. I want for each book to be its own self-contained independent narrative, except the alternate ending anthology, obviously. But yeah, I do have big plans for the series. I don't know if I have much to say. I guess I could talk a little bit about what I have written so far. So what do I have down right now? I did write a prologue that focuses on Eretti. It's currently in Omniscient, but I might just put it in Eretti's point of view. Because, you see, with the story starting where the action is just about with William, I feel like that kind of sets it off on the foot of, this is William's story about Eretti and Elijah. Whereas I want it to be more like, this is Eretti, William, and Elijah's story. So I feel like starting with Eretti's point of view might be the most, bestest for the story. It's like 4 a.m., my brain is like... I took sleeping pills a while ago, and so far I'm still not sleepy. I want to take more, but I'm afraid I'll OD on them. Sorry, I killed a bug. Alright, anyway, yeah, so the prologue is currently Eretti and her best friend Whitney meeting up with Elijah for kind of like, let's get to know each other, but I don't trust you enough to meet up with you alone sort of kind of date. I wrote a really fun flashback for Simone that I think you'll really adore. At least I do, it's my new favorite chapter. And of course I have another Simone chapter planned, one that will really highlight Eretti's relationship with her mother. There's another one though, I'm not sure if I want to put it in Simone's Revenge or book 1. So there's a lot to think about there. Then I have some more chapters I want to include with Eretti's cousins, because Evil Queen Tonia's motives aren't adequately explained, and that bothers me. I don't feel like we need a whole book to explain Evil Queen Tonia's motives. We just need like one chapter and that should do it. And there's also some other chapters. You see, one of the prequels was actually going to be an equal, so it would have been... Whoops, dropped my bracelet, oh well. It would have been book 1, but from Eretti and Elijah's direct perspectives. And there is a chapter with Evil Queen Tonia there that I feel like explains part of it, but yeah, I'm going to put that one in this book. I'm going to move that to this book, and then I'm going to write another one from Evil Queen Tonia's perspective to really... I feel like we need to get into Evil Queen Tonia's head, because she ended up being really important. Like, her and Eretti's rivalry ended up being extremely important to how the book resolves. Or at least it seems like it. It's not actually that instrumental, but in the cut of the book that was released, it seems like Evil Queen Tonia had a lot to do with it. So I need to fix that, because as it stands, it seems like a side character had a huge effect on the plot, when 1, she didn't, and 2, that's awful. Nobody wants a side character to throw a wrench in things at the last minute. So... yeah, there's so much I want to do, and I am having fun with it, but, yeah, there has been some brain fog. I've talked about that in a video on my main channel, the I Can't Hide This Anymore one, but I'm working on what I can when I can. Now that I've made that video, I feel a bit better, though. I will say that my symptoms have eased. I guess it just kind of helped me. Making a video helped it get off my chest, so... I've been more productive ever since I made that video, so I'm really glad I finally made that video. I don't really have anything else to say about this, so that's it for now. Please rate, subscribe, and blessed be, motherfuckers. See ya. I feel like every goth on Earth owns this shirt.